I would like to officially call this workshop of the Blackstone Millville Regional School District to order January 20th, 2021, for a purpose of a budget workshop. And let's do introductions. And I'm just going to go in order. So even though it doesn't usually go this way, I'm going to start with Jason.
Jason DeFalco, Superintendent.
Jane Reggio, School Committee. Tara?
Tara Larkin, Millville.
Matt?
Matt Aaronworth, Assistant Superintendent.
Aaron's cat?
Erin Vanaco, Millville.
Karen?
Erin Vernon, Millville.
Todd?
Todd Schaefer, Director of Instrumental Music.
Jenny?
Jenny Cheremka, Principal at the Complex.
Christina?
Christina Schaefer, Principal at Millville Elementary.
Carrie?
Carrie Gaudette, Blackstone.
Jill?
Jill Piligallerani, Director of Learner Support Services.
Tammy?
Tammy Lemieux, Blackstone.
Okay, perfect. And for purposes, I don't know, am I handing it over to Jason or to Matt? Who wants to go?
I can tee us off for tonight.
Perfect, thank you.
Absolutely, thanks. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see all of you. I know we've got a few workshops coming up this week and next week. And so I know we'll be spending quite a bit of time together over the next couple of weeks to really delve into the specifics of our proposed or preliminary, both I suppose, FY22 budget. This evening we're going to hear from our elementary school principals and our Director of Music. And they're going to talk a bit about next year's programming and what that will look like, not only from a materials and a staffing perspective, but obviously from a monetary perspective. And what we're going to do, I'm going to actually share my screen. Your packets are in your emails there from Friday. If you have any questions and you need them again, let me know. But bear with me 1 second, and I'm going to pull up. I'm on a new thing here. I'm not used to Chromebooks. I'm trying to, I hope I do this right. Just because it's a different device. Hang on. Right here. Okay. You are sharing your screen. Okay. Can folks see this?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. All right. So what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to scroll. Oh, I'm sorry, Jane. Go ahead.
Go ahead, you're good.
Okay. All right. Great. I'm going to scroll down and start with the elementary schools. And as the committee and our community know, we are reorganizing our elementary schools for next year. So we asked Dr. Remke and Mrs. Schaefer to actually work on their budgets together because now we will have a truly aligned PK to 5 side of our school system. And so with all of that, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Remke and Ms. Schaefer to walk us through the documents for this evening. And let me know when you need me to just scroll down, ladies, and I can take care of that.
Sure, thank you. So as you can see on the slideshow, the first part of it is the materials. Christina and I both share a Google Doc with a Google Sheet with our staff, and to ask for, must have or wish to have list. So we kind of, selected materials that are necessary from our staff. So we want to make sure they have a voice. So if you can see on the screen, most of the top 2 materials came from the library. They mostly replacing old books or updating books that are outdated for our library. And then the rest of the items are more instructional materials like the dry erase board and earbuds. I think what we learned from the end of last year and this year is, some of the materials we never really had. But when we went to distance learning, we realized, oh, geez, we don't really have whiteboard for every single kid. We don't have earbuds for some kids, don't have that. But then we found them very useful even when we return in person. When kids have their own whiteboard, they feel like they have a space that they can take chances in learning. So, that's very useful. So we want to make sure that all the kids have that. One of the items, Jason, if you could scroll down a little bit.
Absolutely. Just tell me when to stop, Jenny.
And the biggest item on that list is the Envision books, 11,000. Because this year is, and Matt, correct me, I'm wrong, because this is my second year. This is our last year with the materials. Mm-hmm. And so our reviewing the curriculum is a 2-year process. So we will need another year of Envision materials.
Jenny, can I just jump in there quickly? Just so the committee is aware, there will be a significant ask for math materials, whether we stick with Envisions or not, frankly, because we'll have to re-up our contract with Envisions. If that's who the committee decides, the math committee decides to recommend to the school committee next year. What Dr. Remke is referring to is just the extension cost of Envisions for this 1 year or next school year. So you will not see, which is a good thing on one hand, a significant cost for curriculum next year. If you think about what our ELA materials, our literacy materials cost last spring, you won't see a budget item like that in here.
So Jason, can I ask a clarifying question?
Please.
So we are not, the math study review is not for FY22?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. So you'll see that request in next year. This time next year when we're meeting, you'll see that request come up.
Yeah, so that's kind of the end of that material list. And again, is create and requested by teachers. And then we kind of have conversation of what, some of the things that they must have. And these are the things that would enhance their learning. Christina?
Millville has similar requests, library, same library requests, replace books, maybe build up because we are going to be in early childhood, build up some of our library for the early childhood age level. And also just adjustment counselor, again, same thing as Jenny, as she had said, that we shared a doc with our staff. And these are some things that were requested. The Envisions, I also have that same line item under me, so that we have the money split in half between the two schools. And then just again, similar, you can keep going scrolling down, so just basically done that. Similar requests. Any questions on anything for the Millville one that I can answer?
I can't see anybody, just FYI. So if you need me to do something, just let me know.
Okay. All right. So then on to staffing. So for our staffing, this is what we have for staffing currently between the two schools on the left side, the existing staff. We combined the numbers, figuring it would be easier to see what we have combined now, and then look at what we're looking for next year. So our pre-K, we're looking at the potential of expanding our pre-K program. We did, as part of our form that the parents fill out to be entered into the preschool lottery, we did add a question this year about potential interest in a full-day pre-K program. So we are waiting to see back on those. Those are due back, I want to say end of February, beginning of March off the top of my head. So we will know if there's more interest, but we are looking at expanding the program. And then if you look at K numbers remain the same, 1, 2, 3, 4 is different, and 5 is different. So there potentially be an FTE move from grade 5 to 4 due to enrollment. In all of our class sizes, as we presented a few months back, are all about 21 to 23, 24. We presented this kind of information during the regional agreement discussions.
And if I could say, this is really nice to see the consistency and the equity across all classrooms.
When we look at the enrollment, we look at grade 5. Currently, we have 5 teachers. And with Millville moving another teacher over, next year would have been 6. But then we look at the number of students in each grade level, it would be beneficial to move one of the grade 5 teacher to grade 4 because grade 4 has larger number of students, we're 126. So we want to keep that kind of, consistently 21 to 23, class size. That's why we moved the one grade 5 teacher to grade 4. And the next, yeah, I can see it. The next one is we each requested a STEM teacher, and Christina and I both did a mock schedule for next year, quickly to see, where we at with what we have. With my mock schedule, if we don't have a STEM teacher, one of my grade levels would not have any technology. With the mock schedule, happened to be grade 2, but it could be grade 3. So I'm requesting one at the complex. Christina, you want to explain the one that you're requesting?
Sure. So at Millville, we'd obviously be short 2 because we have 10 teaching blocks for technology as well, which would cover K and 1, but our pre-K would not have any experience with even just entry technology and even some of the STEM pieces. So we're also
Christina,
looking.
Do they have it now? Do they currently have it now?
So this year we do not, because we have in the past. So prior to this year, we have had it, but we did have a shift in staffing. So the kindergarten students actually took the places of the preschool students.
And we also want to add that, in the classrooms, they have very limited science periods. We have about 4 periods of science a week. And with the STEM teacher, we can add, extra science instruction during the STEM time.
And a lot more of the hands-on piece, the students love. I ran a STEM club at MES, and the kids loved it. And I was actually talking to one of the kindergarten teachers who had STEM last year at the complex, and she said that was her kid's favorite special every week last year. They loved that, just the hands-on getting into that science and digging deeper into that science than what they're able to do in 4 periods a week in the classroom. Because obviously we're really focusing on the ELA and the math and building those concepts. So that was definitely a piece that we thought would be beneficial to our students. All right, so the next piece is the math interventionist. We are looking at some gaps, or we are starting to see some gaps as a result of the remote learning and the decreased time from last year, and also just the pandemic in general, and the experiences that students have been able to have with the math and outside world information. So the data is showing that there is a decrease in student achievement in math. So, our plan is that this math interventionist will be like our reading interventionists this year are able to do, is just target specific math skills. So they would take a group, we'd have an identified piece from the data, they'd take group, work with them 4 to 6 weeks, reassess, and then move on to the next skill, or just continue to tweak it. So that's our hope for the math interventionist.
The next one is the early childhood PTL coach. Currently, we have one coach split between Millville and Blackstone, servicing pre-K to 5, coaching pre-K to 5. And that's a huge span. So we thought, if we added another coach, but focusing on early childhood, then, they can allow the coach that focus on that smaller span of grade level. So it would be pre-K to 2 and 3 to 5.
And obviously, while we'd be searching for the coach, we'd want someone that has the experience with the early childhood, so that they could help support our early childhood teachers. And obviously, they would have the experience with the best practices and all the appropriate skills for them. So that's our hope with that. All right. And so the last piece of staffing that we added was a 0.5 custodian in each building. So currently, Millville has 1.5 custodians at night and 1 during the day. And Jenny at the complex, just correct me if I'm wrong, 1 during the day and 2.5 at night?
Correct.
So we're hoping to make that fuller, to keep our buildings just, up to par and not let them deteriorate, and just keep the cleanliness there for our students, our family, our staff. So we're hoping that we'd have the 0.5 custodian in each building to be able to make 2 people at night and 3 people at the complex. And one thing that has happened previously is when we did have the 2 full-time people at night, we were able to shift things around so we didn't always have to call in subs all the time, because you had that person to help kind of pick up if we needed to, and then we'd take that area next and a little bit the next day. So, so that's where we stand with those. Any questions? I can't see if anybody has a hand up.
Yeah, do you want me to, I can stop sharing and see.
Sure.
Before we do music.
Any questions?
I have a question, Jason. Tammy.
Tammy.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi. Christina, can I just clarify the custodian piece?
Sure.
What was the last piece you said as far as if you had an additional one, then you could, if somebody was out, if somebody's out during the day, then you can use that person to
So it helps.
substitute, or how does that work?
So when we used to have at Millville 1 during the day and the 2 at night, it was easier to float. Like, so for example, if the day person was out, one of the night people, it makes it hard now for the other night person, because you only have a half a night person. Or if we use the half person, now I'm taking them away from the complex. So it makes it hard to cover that and then have the coverage for the subs. And also at night, we did find that they were able to move stuff around to be able to fill in that piece. If it was only one day, we could kind of fill in with the 2 night guys. It wasn't 1.5 people trying to get the whole building done. You'd have the 2 people getting the whole building done. So it did allow for that a little bit of leeway.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
Hi, this is Erin. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hey, Erin.
We can hear you.
I just wanted to back up the custodian piece. That would really just be bringing them back to where we had been a few years prior, right?
Correct.
Okay. And I guess I do have a question backing all the way up to supplies. On the Envisions workbooks, are they being used this year, or are they doing things online, or is there, I had many years of many empty workbooks come home, and I don't mind spending the money on things that are being used, but are they using them with fidelity, or are they able to do these pages online now, and they're not using the workbooks as much?
So I can answer that. Since I've been here, I agree with you. I noticed in the past, even last year, we talk about how many empty workbook we saw. And I will say this year, our teachers, I can't name one teacher is not using the Envision program with fidelity. They're using every component of it. So are they filling out every single page? But we have online students, so they are using both online and workbook. As a matter of fact, they come up with a way that kids can work on their workbook, but the online teacher can still see them working in their workbook. So they are being used this year.
And it's the same for Millville. Some kids work better with the paper. So some kids actually, if the class is being offered the option to do the Envisions online piece, some kids say, I'd rather do it in paper. So you also not only have the online piece, which the teachers are especially using if we have to do a quick shift to remote, or if a kid happens to be out and they need to make up stuff, they can do so online. And you don't have to send the workbook home, but there are quite a few kids that actually prefer doing it in the workbook so that they can actually write out all the work in the book, and you can actually see their work as well.
Thank you.
Anything else before we shift to Mr. Schaefer and hear about our music program?
No one else? Okay, thank you.
All right, let me shift gears again here. Give me 1 second. And I'll share the screen again. Okay, let me go back to the top. And Mr. Schaefer, take it away, sir.
All righty, thank you. So as you can see from the list in front of you, there are no new materials being asked for or increases in current materials being asked for. I will share that it's difficult to assess need, areas of need, both looking at this year with how many things are completely different this year, and also more importantly, with the uncertainty of what next year is going to bring on two fronts, both of what's going to be offered, and especially I'm more concerned about the fall, but also in terms of numbers. On the sheet I'll get to in a minute, we originally last winter had anticipated having 82 students in the fall marching band before COVID. And then we ended up having 60, and it's really, really difficult to say what we're going to end up with next year. Every year we go through a process of inviting students to consider it. At the same time, with the uncertainty, I really don't know, the level of comfort that people will have. So because of that, I kept everything the same as this year, with the hope that next year will be a little bit more normal and we'll be able to, field teams the way that we have in the past, and then progress from there. So there are no changes to what was asked for from last year, both with supplies and obviously with stipends as well. If there's any questions about the budget before we move on to the projected extracurricular enrollment, I can answer.
Anyone have any questions for Todd? Okay.
So for extracurricular enrollment, I will share that I'm absolutely enjoying the fact that our students are able to have winter activities. The fact that we're able to have a winter percussion and a winter guard and jazz ensemble, I think is doing wonders for retention moving forward. A lot of kids look for those things outside of school that they can kind of be part of a team. Obviously it works that way for sports and for music. And because of that, I think a lot of students ended up coming out for these activities. Our jazz ensemble is a little bit bigger than it has been. Our high school winter guard is a little bit larger than it was last year. Our competitive winter percussion team, the kids are all excited. The first time we've had a competitive winter percussion team versus what we've had in the past, which has been more of a wind and percussion team. So we're very fortunate that we're able to have those activities. And I do want to share before I talk about next year's numbers, that everything's virtual. All in-person activities were canceled back in October. But because it's virtual, it gives us an opportunity to kind of branch out and try new things. So our winter percussion and winter guard are actually competing in an international circuit this year. So they're sending in videos, they're recording several videos and sending them in February and March. And they will be competing against groups literally from all over the world. So that's kind of a neat thing that we've never had the opportunity to do, mostly because usually those in-person competitions are far away. So this kind of gives us an opportunity to get the good word of Blackstone Millville out there. Our jazz ensemble, which typically does the Massachusetts Jazz Circuit, is actually doing a national circuit through U.S. bands, which is the marching circuit that we go through. So if there's any shining light to this pandemic, it's the fact that being virtual gives us the opportunity to actually send in videos to national and international circuits. So that's kind of a neat thing for us this year. But for next year, I'm more confident about winter numbers than I am fall marching band. I put down 75 for anticipated. Where we end up is really tough to say. I did sit in on a U.S. bands, which is our marching circuit that we compete in. focus group meeting last week, and they are planning on having a season, but it's too early to say what that season will look like. So we are hoping that we can compete, that we can travel, but like I said, and along with that, we're hoping that we have around 75, which is where we were, about where we were last year or 2 years ago. But it's kind of a guess. So, are there any questions?
I don't specifically have a question, but I'm very excited about the idea that the winter folks and the smaller groups are doing some pretty exciting things because, like you said, they can't travel necessarily. So the opportunity to have competition beyond New England is amazing. So I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Anybody have any questions for Todd?
I do. It's Erin. Just noting the numbers that you're unsure of for the fall marching band, that would not impact budget, the budget side of things. So correct?
Correct. So
there would still be a marching band, it would just be smaller, or we'd be collecting less user fees per se.
We'd probably be collecting less user fees. I honestly don't think we'd be anything smaller than where we were this year at 60 students. I was actually relieved that we were able to get 60 this past fall. I don't think we'd ever go smaller than that. But yeah, if we ended up, somehow getting back up to the 80 that we were hoping for this past fall, that would not impact the budget at all.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? So, Jane, those were our two cost centers to review this evening.
Okay.
And tomorrow evening, we have our secondary schools and our athletics cost center managers. Our principals and athletics director will be with us to go through the same process.
Okay, perfect. So would people like to look to the school committee for direction? Would you like to go through some of these with initial thoughts, so we have some initial thoughts today, or do you want to hear kind of the whole picture and then keep notes and have a major session at the end? What are people's preferences?
Jane, Tammy speaking.
Yep.
I like a major session at the end because I think we have a pot of money and then you kind of have to everybody, all the cost center managers are prioritizing for themselves.
Sure.
Sure. But then it falls upon us to then prioritize district-wide.
Right.
And I think it's helpful to have that perspective because I think, we want to have as much as we can have for our students.
Right.
And having that whole view, I think, gives us an easier way to do that.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. The larger picture. Would people tend to agree with Tammy's thought process? If you're not unmuted, you can just thumbs up or some kind of reaction. Yeah. Okay.
I agree with that as well.
Okay.
And I do like the way it's presented this year with and honestly, it could have been the same last year. I'm just not remembering it, but existing versus new side by side it's just making it so much easier to look at.
And Jane, to your question, we have our January 26th budget workshop. We could always have a big conversation at the end, or we could do it at the subsequent school committee meeting if the committee would like to do that too, or both.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to ask folks to save some time on the 26th, because I think if we have a good sense of where we want to go, that will help us when we meet with the towns on the 27th. So. And we may, and again, last year when we met with the towns, we weren't quite there yet either, but the more sense we can have, the better we are, and we can schedule another one after that.
It's interesting, Jane. I'm sorry, Tammy, please.
Nope, go ahead, Jason. Mine can wait.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was going through last year's budget documents recently, and it was just interesting. We sequenced it completely different. So when we actually met with the towns before we did this work.
I thought so.
I think
Okay. Yeah.
just to underscore what you're saying, I just think it makes good sense, Jane, because we did the town joint meeting, and then in February, frankly, we had our workshops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the end of January, first week of February. So we're ahead of the curve a little bit, and I think your point makes really good sense.
Yeah, because then we come in with more reasonable and things where we know what we're fighting. Like, we know this is important to us. This is a priority. We're going to push some buttons to get it versus, well, we haven't seen it yet, so we'll see. So I agree. I like that, Jason. Okay. Anybody have any other issues we need to address?
I just have a request, Jane.
Oh, sure.
To Erin's point about the column, so I do think we did it that way last year.
We did.
And one thing that I recall that got a little confusing was when the middle school and the high school both included certain items that were shared.
Yeah.
But it was like the same money. So I'm just wondering when they do their final chart, if they can somehow delineate those things, because I recall us saying, oh, news ELA, is that the same subscription, different subscription? So if we could kind of have a look at that. I don't know if it's a separate column or what you do, but just having them make that clear for us, so that because I think even when we were talking about cutting things out, it was like, well, did we cut 100 seats? Did we cut 50 seats? What's that? So just hoping to clarify that for the document that comes out. To Erin's point, it is lovely to see that as a whole.
Makes sense.
Matt, do you have a thought on that?
So I do believe that it is separated by school this time around, but I will double check and review with the principals to confirm that that's the case.
So if that's not the case, in your packet Friday, we scanned in one big document that had all of the workshop documents for this workshop and tomorrow night's workshop. So if there are any changes, we'll make those updates and get them to you tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll be able to work off of what was sent on Friday.
That sounds great.
Okay. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
So Matt, when you say it's separated, so I guess what I think what I'm asking is, is the money separated? So if it's on each individual list and it costs $200 together, would 100 be on one and 100 on the other? Because I think that's what happened last year. Like the full amount was on both sheets, so you didn't know what you were actually cutting.
Yeah, no, I did understand your point. It's
okay. All right.
One. I do believe that it's separated. So, for example, you will see an increase in VHS, the virtual high school platform, and they each listed an increase in their cost, and it was 10 seats to the high school and 10 seats to the middle school. So those increases are separate on each of the school sheets, but I'll definitely confirm before we move forward.
Anyone else? Well, if nothing else, I thank you, Jenny and Christina and Todd, for sharing this with us, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Well, we'll see everybody same bat time tomorrow night.
Good
Right?
night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, everyone.